Well, thank you everybody for coming. We can start with, I know some people have done introductions already, but let's just go around and make sure everybody knows who everyone else is. Ted, what do you want to say?
Oh, I'm Ted Mandigo, hospitality. I have what was originally listed as a landing course, which is HOS 272, basic accounting, but apparently it's not a landing course anymore. But I'm still here because I got a lot of freshmen and a lot of first year contact with students.
Yeah, so.
And I had nothing else to do.
Well, we're glad you're here. Landing courses, as we explained in the email, and we'll talk more about here, is, well, basically Amanda, our institutional researcher, pulls the list of whichever classes have the most number of new students, because those happen to also be the classes that have the greatest number of struggling students.
And
So that's
272 doesn't have as many new students because they failed once. And they aren't new anymore, see?
That's a great point. That's where our, if we just go by statistics.
The statistics don't.
But that's just the technical reason behind which classes were considered landing courses and which ones weren't. But it doesn't mean that there's not any. Go ahead, Kelly.
I'm Kelly Mink, and I'm teaching the Gen Ed, the SIS 190, which is the computer course. It's a new fun course for students to get involved with the possibility of having to do some spontaneous work for a group or a corporation or a firm, where they might be asked to do a presentation of some kind. So they want to become familiar with contemporary technological media, pretty simple things really, like PowerPoint, but also creating infographics, and also doing the research that's associated with it. So the course is very much like an English course in some ways in structure, but it's oriented toward producing visual aids like PowerPoint presentations, infographics, and so on, rather than a term paper. So it's structured very much like an English course. In other words, we do the bibliographical research and the feedback regarding topics, the peer review critiques, and that kind of thing. But it winds up in a visual presentation or two or three rather than a term paper. So they're using computer technologies to just write it.
A great deal of information literacy and
Information literacy, as they say, and visual literacy, so technological literacy.
I'm Greg Stolz, and I teach food sanitation class at Culinary 110. It's a mandated course from the state of Illinois that someone may be certified at all time in food safety. It's a $50 class.
Kevin Schwimmer, culinary. Started out 9 years ago doing first block, so all the new students in culinary. And then I did a number of different classes. I was in the QSR and the cafe for a number of years. And now I'm back teaching first block again, which is why I'm here.
Interesting. I'm Dina, Dean of the School of Culinary Arts. My associate dean here is showing me some numbers, so I got sidetracked. I'm a landing course instructor. I teach American cuisine, which is Culinary 102. It's the theory behind what makes a chef professional in terms of a survey of professional organizations, and also how we interface in America with all the regional cookery. So I teach on Friday morning. So I am not here just as a dean, but I'm a landing course instructor myself. Chef.
Michelle Patria, Associate Dean. I also do 136, which is the menu, introduction, first block, culinary. And I know what was first one because I typed it every day.
My name is Clara Solson, and I teach sustainability classes for the hospitality management program and doing the environmental science. Is that considered a landing course in environmental science?
For this quarter, I don't remember, it may have been on the list, but since we're not running it, we'll see about next quarter.
Yeah, right. But anyway, the hospitality 235 is the technology sustainability class. A landing course.
Hi, I'm Nicole Grassi. I'm an English instructor here, and I'm teaching INT integrated It's made up of, I'm kind of making some changes as I'm going, so, but it has, and Fun can speak to this a little better. But there is, I'm kind of spelling it as an intro to critical thinking. But they have to obviously do reading and writing, research, and there's also student debates. There's a lab project where they have to do primary research and conclusion.
And I'm also teaching as a learning course instructor, the online version of IMT 110. And the course outcomes are the core academic competencies, which is part of our old institutional outcome model. So all these activities that Nicole mentioned are for the purpose of developing students in terms of their critical thinking, their research, their written and oral communication, quantitative literacy, and others.
And I'm Mark Schneider-Heinz, and with the Center for Teaching and Learning. And I teach SOE 115, which is Educational Psychology for the School of Education, which, like TED, was once a landing course, and now on the new list, it's not a landing course anymore. But I do have a good handful of my students are brand new to Kendall, so that's fine. Thank you for that.
Also, I'm a member of the CTL and part of this initiative. So the first question we have for you is, what do you think that new students need in order to be successful?
I think they need to be somehow brought into the fold so that they're a part of the feel like they're a part of the school's organization, so that they're not sitting there taking those and staring forward, so that they're brought into conversations and I don't say force, but encouraged to participate. I think that's a part of it.
Are you referring to within a particular
Within the class, within the class itself. I use an example, I've used a couple of different times, having some international students that group. And one from China, and we're going along and say, I need you to do a quick presentation. I gave them an assignment that was this Chinese student started, and I said, okay, we'll do lunch. I said, well, you want to tell us a little bit about it? Read it.
Well, but.
So you're saying you asked an open-ended question?
Yeah.
With that particular student
And-
population, it's better to ask a direct question?
It could have been that I asked a direct question, was it yes or no? I might have gotten yes or no.
Something to kind of start the conversation.
I was so kind of taken aback by opening that.
Yeah, it's shocking.
I was
But I agree about, about engaging with the students right away. I mean, you can't really, as an individual instructor, bring them into the fold of the college as a whole. You can only bring them into the fold of the classroom yourself, locally right there, so to speak. And I find more and more, the way to do that, I agree with you completely, is to engage them in conversation. Here in this one, we have a project right away, so I'm talking with them individually during class about the character project and what they're doing and, what the topics are and so on. And some people, like the Chinese students, are going to have difficulty. Someone's very quiet, others Chinese students, and some people are very quiet, or don't really want to speak up and so on. So part of throwing them into the fold is accommodating them, in some way in their own style of communication, so to speak, which also is what you're saying. If the Chinese student are very quiet and shy freshman, doesn't want to talk very much, you can go back there and you can whisper with them. You don't have to do everything from the front of the class, and you can have a little private conversation with them, other people are working and so on. So it's all rhetoric, in the largest sense. It's all a way of making contact with people and, allowing them that pathos, that affect that we mentioned, to be brought into the classroom by way of participation. So there are various strategies, I guess we all learn from doing that.
See,
I think
as an
it's important
instructor,
too.
you're noticing what it is that they need.
Yeah, everybody's different, so you sort of adapt to the individual.
When the question about what students need, I think they need a clear understanding of their expectations. So otherwise, how can they and participation is part of that, that, whatever form of participation is on it.
So that they understand that's what you expect them to do during the quarter.
I think modeling is really important. I think our students get kind of tired of us telling them what to do, but you can show them what you need, but we can a lot more sort of pronounce, I think, or have more pronounced effect.
That might be unique to new students.
What's that?
You think that might be unique for new students?
No, I think modeling is critical across the whole program, but it's especially important with new students. In other words, if I'm going to get up in front of the room and talk about what it means to be a professional chef, I can really easily show them that, right? Just how I interact with them, how I answer their questions, how I, not so much force interaction, but engage, like the two gentlemen said earlier. I think it's largely about modeling, how I model what I want them to do and how I want them to be, respect, decorum. So we spend a lot of time really kind of building a professional in block one.
The other great struggle that they have, I think, for the freshman classes, we find this every time. I'm trying to accommodate in this particular class, and it's easy because it's an in-class computer project, computer class. So I do have to do as much of the work as possible in class and make space for them to do the work in class. Because, as I said, 25% of new students drop out. Most of them start with a goodwill. I mean, there's some freshman fuzziness, and lack of focus about what's expected of them. That's a possibility. But for the most part, they have difficulty because they have so many external projects, because most of them are in culinary schools or in hospitality management schools. And they will tell you if you ask them, they don't know that. I mean, a survey at the beginning of school doesn't tell you this because they don't know it. But they're going to have much more work than they're used to. And if they don't get really good at time management really quickly, they don't really realize that they're going to fall behind. And so they do fall behind in these beginning classes. And I'm only formulating the problem and how to solve it. I think might be different for different. Might be different for different classes. But it really is an issue. I mean, the way I did it in this particular class is to accommodate that by encouraging them and making them do as much work as possible so they have as little outside homework as possible. I give them the option of doing some things outside, but I get them well started in the class. For example, this first project, not wrong about it, but it's a PowerPoint project right away so they get really involved. They understand, what kind of, it's a model, it itself is a model of the entire course. So they do that right away, and it was due yesterday. But then they have, not everybody gets quite done during the class, so they've got till Sunday night. And then on Monday, we'll have the presentation, first presentation right away. So very engaged, they're very involved with the class. The point is, try to get them to do as much other influence as possible.
You engage them early.
Engage them early and try to constantly both get them involved and also check up on, whether they're actually doing the work in class rather than emailing and typing something else or doing other homework and so on. So that's the sort of proactive element of trying to keep them.
You're setting up an environment and a situation where.
Let's say, it might be different for different people in different sorts of classes, but I think the one big problem in Kendall for the beginning classes is the external projects. The major projects that they have. There's no real correlation between the amount of time they have to spend on those and the obligations of regular classwork. It's not exactly, I think that there's a kind of onus placed on the other planning course teachers and so on to try to help the students manage their time and to help them get through the class and being aware that during this external time.
So perhaps ensuring that if they're asked to do complete an assignment outside of class, that they have a support system to to do that.
They've got it well started in class. Again, I'm saying this applies to this particular class, maybe more than to others, but one way or another, I think instructors have to be aware of how much of a time burden these students do have. And if they're not used to it either.
And that's something that I get once in a while, especially in higher level classes and they're at capstone, and all of a sudden they're just completely swamped with projects, and I'll wind up saying, okay, the midterms on this, they thought, gosh, I've got 6 midterms that day. Oh, okay. Or I got 3 projects, that's why I'm behind. And somehow we're not communicating the level of assignments and projects that are there, and they all tend to fall
Around the same
all the
time.
same week.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get closer to finals, the load gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And it kind
For
of
these
gets up.
projects, and if you expect them to turn in a regular every week assignment, all of a sudden your every week assignment becomes the last thing on the priority list. And that doesn't get done because there's so much pressure on these projects. And I don't know if there's any way to communicate among the instructors what the big project assignments are that might have a little blow up like this. It's got a chart that says, for this particular course, here's the assignment. And we can take a look at the chart and say, oh, okay, so if I give them another assignment here, we're close this high.
But I guess the good thing is that during capstone, then they've been successful in a landing course then, right? If they made it to capstone,
Yeah.
then they've been successful in a landing course.
It's one thing that the cohort model for culinary has kind of looked to our advantage, is because it's lockstep, right? And they go from one course to one, there's prerequisites that make sure that they follow a particular pathway. And the classes typically run in 2.5 or 5 week sections. So in week 10, there might be 3 assignments due, but not 10.
Yeah.
It's not all piled up at the end of the quarter for them.
We don't look at it. I mean, I put up an assignment, and then marketing has big assignments due, and then.
Well, it's hard too, because your program, you have people coming in at different points, and there's maybe not as tight of a prereq model there, so that's one of the good things with the reform of the general education, is they'll be a little more orderly, which will allow us to build and scaffold a little bit more carefully. I think that's a critical point. If everything's due in week 10 and everything's coming due, even midterms in week 5, I mean, I can see how students would be overwhelmed.
All of a sudden you're behind because you would push out this project and you're 2 weeks behind on this one.
We don't really see that as much.
Those of you that just logged in, we're talking about what are some of the needs that new students have.
I make my infographic project due at the end of the 8th or the 1st of the 9th week. You know, so that we don't have that problem. And then if they have turn it in a little later, that's fine. But I try to get it in at least a week and a half before I go back all the other finals are due and so on. So they have a little bit of leeway
Yeah.
there. And then, of course, some of them will get it in the next week, but that's fine. We're still learning before the end of the term.
Yeah, so you're finding solutions within your class, and that's
Yeah.
great that your team is already taking action on that. So there are strategies that can be done within one class, but the issue that you're describing would be helped if institutionally we had some kind of support system to just help spread that out or to help out as a community. So we'll take note of that and see what we can do. As far as strategy, what I've heard mentioned have been getting them started on projects in class so that there's a greater chance that they'll already have a momentum so that they can continue to finish outside of class. And then,
Because in that case, the need might be that the new students may not have the time management skills, right?
I think the other thing too is, all of us in this room, most of us, not all of us, were really good students. So we kind of come up in front of the classroom thinking, well, y'all want to study, right? And we all want to be A students, right? And you're going to try your best. I do too. I do too. I'm a diehard, but they don't all feel that way, right? So I think one of the things, I've been a teacher 18 years, and a lot of you in the room have been teaching a lot longer than that. But the reality is we make a lot of assumptions, right? We make a lot of assumptions that they want to do well, that they want to do their best, and frankly, that's just not the case. So then you just really have to sort of teach to that I don't know, that non-homogeneous kind of population, and not make those assumptions, right? I used to make the assumption like everyone's got a binder, right? We printed the syllabus, right? And they're all nodding, but we know they haven't.
so I can admit that it is.
I've tried to eliminate as much of that assumption driven mode and just, again, just model what it is that I'm looking for and what it is that I want. I think I tend to get better results.
So some
that
students
way.
just need to learn how to learn again.
Need to learn how to be
Doesn't mean
organized,
never learn.
be organized, need to learn why it's important. Need to just model me. Thankfully in culinary, the whole point of being, when you're a new learner in culinary arts, your entire job is to copy us. That's how a restaurant works, right? The salad cook doesn't prep and cook it the way they want to. They do it the way chef says. So just getting them to copy us is like skill number one. So if I come in front of a room and I'm in uniform, you got to do that as well. If I tell you that handing assignments are important, you need to do that as well. So that's like the modeling that I was talking about. I think that's really important, is that we make assumptions that they learn the way we learn and that they care about it as much as we do.
Yeah, and the modeling you mentioned ties in with what Claire's mentioned with setting those expectations.
Yes.
At the start, and then what Ted, you were saying, which was what I interpret as kind of an acculturation to how learning is happening here, where you're expected to participate and be active versus staying back and not.
How about some of the people on over here? Anyone else have any other needs that they think new students have?
Well, you mentioned modeling. I'll take a slightly different tack. I hope I don't offend the culinary by saying this is how I approach modeling. From a math perspective, I very much value when the way I do it is different than the way I do it. The way the student does it is different than I do it. And so if I'm going around and give a problem, going around the classroom, watching the students work, if I see someone solving a problem with their own little, idiosyncratic method, I say, why don't you come on up and show that? It gives them a voice. For a new student, I think that's important in terms of giving them a voice to say, yeah, what I've learned is valuable. I get it in the restaurant world, maybe that wouldn't fly, but
No.
but give them a little voice. It'll also teach the idea that, hey, it's not just the instructor saying, hey, this is it, push, 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 push. There's the opportunity for student voices to come out and find their own.
That's the way we teach teachers to teach in a what is it called? The Math for Educators class, right? That excellent text that you put out here. It's the groups of students, and they're teaching elementary school students, but the groups of students who come up, who invent a way to solve little basic mathematical problems before you teach them to carry or something like that. There are actually better ways to add, and that the students will invent them, and then you bring those to the fore and so on and so forth. So you can, like you say, it can be a bottom-up kind of.
And so, specifically for a new student, I think there might be some appeal for them saying, yeah, okay, what I've got in my brain has some validity. In a small sense like, yeah, I can cut it here. I belong in this classroom.
Yeah. They may never have been asked before to share their way of thinking or
To be an active part of the class. And if you all had a chance to read the landing course section of the teaching toolbox, that first overall strategy is personalize and engage. So that speaks to giving them that individual attention, bringing them out, showing that they can be an active member.
ideas.
Right. So the next question then, after we've talked about, we've kind of touched on this already, but thinking about the students in your past landing course classes, or just classes in general, the ones who really struggle, what kinds of struggles have you seen?
Before that, actually, great point is that too, because we actually put a statistic on there, which is what's necessitating us starting this initiative, is that we know that instructors do a lot of great things in their class. The reality is that we still have 25% of our students who drop out of college after their first or second term. We have then 25% of those who are still on academic probation after their first or second term. And then we've learned recently that 60% of the KC alerts, or what was called academic alert at one time, are students not turning in work. So we might make a guess that has to do in part with their engagement in the class. They're not feeling engaged or not finding there's value to that, or we could probably interpret it all different kind of ways, but I mean those are really serious numbers, right? So we could be talking about doing great things in our classes, but that reality still exists. So we're trying to, with this initiative, we're trying to understand really what are those struggles that not only do students have, that leads them to want to drop out or to not engage in the class or to end up on academic probation. But what do you as instructors also struggle with when working with students in these landing courses? So that's where we want to go to now.
Yeah, those 25% of dropping out or academic probation, that's specific to landing courses.
Well, here's what I find, and it's really evident in the classes this term, is the students really have a goodwill. Whereas in both of these classes, it's not, everybody is really involved, everybody has already done, or just about finished a really interesting PowerPoint presentation. But there are two different things. One is, I said, freshman fuzziness, that for whatever reason, it's not necessarily visible to me. There might even be a little packet of friends, of students who just don't come to class and who just stop coming or something like that. I don't know why necessarily. But my suggestion here and recommendation is that, there are two possibilities. One is the school really go after them aggressively in terms of, deans emailing them or something like that. And you've already got the academic probation from it. That's a little bit passive. In other words, academic warnings, but it's a little bit passive, maybe both for the instructor and somebody else to go after them in terms of emailing and so on. And if they don't come back to class, to drop them because they're going to make an F in the class, from not having been there, period. I think that, I'm not sure, I'm not clear about it, but I think Kendall isn't, if they're not there for a couple of weeks, then Kendall will drop them. But if they're not there between the third week and the sixth week, they should be dropped from the class because it's just going to be an F on the record and they should be out there and be able to start over again. But then the other thing is to, sorry, going on about it, but the other thing is to be very active during class, particularly with the projects class, and more so than have been in the past. And for me, that's what I've become aware of, is to, almost on a daily basis, to consult with them, in class about their progress. And if they're not keeping up or haven't actually done work in class and so on, to sit there and fuss at them or work with them or something until they get something done, right in front of me, and keep up with it that way. Mm-hmm. Because the biggest problem, last term I had two students who came to class every day, were there through the entire class. I knew they were a little bit behind, but I didn't think they were there all the time, so I thought they were going to catch up. They didn't finish their final projects, and they can't actually pass this class with their final project. So they were there the entire time and still didn't pass. Mm-hmm. So it's, kind of micro, I won't say management, micro attention, somehow. So those are two different things. In other words, it's a great deal more focus and attention in the class itself as to individual progress. And then also, there should be maybe something more formal in terms of insisting that students come to class or get out of class.
Well, even for the students who, the group of students you mentioned, who
Just like
should
3 or 4
drop
friends,
class.
and they just sort of disappear together.
We also don't want to lose those students who, whether it's a withdraw or it's an F. Those are, both groups we want to target. But I'm glad that you turned the conversation back to what you can do in class in order to help keep them.
But I just hate to see, a student who was there maybe until the third week of class and then has never been there since then, is still sitting on my roll.
Is there,
I shouldn't be there.
I'm ignorant of the way that the attendance functions. When you fill in the report of attendance, particularly starting out at the beginning of the quarter, is there a way to go back and recapture your class to get a filled out attendance roster for the period of time in the class so you can scan across it and see who's been there and who hasn't? Now, I got an annual version of it, so I've got that information. But
I think Blackboard has an attendance tracker feature that you can go in there and manually track attendance through Blackboard.
Okay, for the whole class or by student or?
But I think we then need to enter it in
But it's not in the attendance summary.
No.
You need to enter it
I think it's
twice.
in there as attendance tracker and you would attend.
So I have to enter it in the attendance sheet, then I've got to go back and open up
Yes.
the attendance tracker and do, well,
So you're struggling. So Ted, then you're struggling with the way to figure out how to access attendance data?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, like through Banner.
Well, I mean, we're already entering. So
We're entering the data.
we're entering the data. So why don't we have access to it on a cumulative basis to say, maybe something pops up and does a red flag that's in the system that says you missed 3 classes, and that student comes up with a red flag, so that maybe even for the advisors.
Mhm.
That would be great.
That's beyond.
What-
And why doesn't the system enable us to do that? I mean, we've got it. I mean, we put the data in. There ought to be a way to get the data out.
Yeah.
Just need to pay coders and print
You
that.
know,
What are,
someone's.
what are some other struggles that you experienced as an instructor, or that you think that your students struggle with in these language courses?
Is it students not turning in work or not asking for help?
I think one thing I've noticed is that the classes, you know, if students are in culinary or baking or pastry, they all know each other. And they're all really bonded because they have these cohort sort of classes. But that sort of leaves students who are not, you know, they're kind of alone, particularly if they're, you know, hospitality or some of those, you know, they know each other to a certain degree. But I've noticed classes are very cliquey here. And, you know, students, and that seems to be a big incentive or motivator to get students to go to class if they have their friends there. Yeah, or not.
Somebody dropped together.
Or, you know, it might motivate them to not go. I don't know.
You know, that's a catch-22, because you know, if you're trying to build a community and you're trying to kind of add value based on that whole social integration piece, it's there. You're exactly right. We have a couple that are, you know, one's out, the other's out, one's out.
Right.
So I don't know. I would say in culinary, it's probably more of an advantage than it is a disadvantage to move in that cohort model. Ted, you're popular. You know, but I know what you're saying, right? So this little
In their class, and that could make a difference, even if just for one student. And that's one of the goals of this initiative, is to have this community to be able to identify our struggles, and then to collaborate to figure out what strategies have worked, what might want to try, and what was the outcome of trying that strategy. For this, we really want to figure out what are the struggles that you have, and whether you as an instructor feel that struggle, or your students, you've observed your students struggling with that. Does anyone else have any other ideas of struggles?
Well, I just want to say, like, for online classes, and I don't know, I just teach one online classes, so I don't know what other people's formats are for those, but, you know, we'll have a discussion board question, and, you know, I think the whole class can get into a mode if a few of them are just like, oh, just writing their opinions, and like, oh, this one, this is kind of stupid, and then everybody kind of does that, and so, then it gets really hard to get substantive feedback, and you know, you just like, and I try modeling and fly write, have whatever response, I'm like, oh, with all this
and
citation.
they answer with, that's really cool, or I don't agree, and they go right back.
Right, so, you know, in terms of keeping them engaged and keeping it sort of rigorous, that it's very difficult sometimes, you know, and it's a dynamic. Sometimes I'll have a class and it's like, wow, we get really good feedback, and then others, it just,
Here's one very small scale solution to that, which would be, there's a feature in the settings for the discussion board where you can say that students cannot see others' posts until they post their initial one.
oh, I didn't know that.
So you can try that.
I like that idea.
One of the things that I struggle with in my classes, I teach classes online, is that students aren't proactive in reaching out for help. They'll either wait until I reach out to them, or the disasters happen and now they're like, oh, no, I can't do anything about it. So they don't reach out to enrollment, they don't reach out to advising, they don't reach out to me, and so they kind of disappear for a while, and then all of a sudden everything kind of erupts, and now like, oh, what can I do? I missed the last 3 weeks of assignments. Can I turn them all in, or you know? So I struggle with how to get them to reach out to me more. So I don't know if it's maybe I'm not coming across as approachable, or they think that you can't approach the instructor that way, or what the deal is. That's a struggle I have.
I don't know if that's just you. I've had that issue for the longest time, and I usually, even when I'm finished with a component of the lecture, I'll say, you know, does this make sense? How are we feeling about this? And people don't get it, and then the challenges, they do the same thing. And I tell my students when we go over the syllabus at the beginning, I'm like, I really don't do game show at the end, or it's kind of like, oh, I'm in slide science, can I try to do?
Yeah.
Like, I don't do that at the end of the term, so if you do have challenges, let me know up front, I'll put the information down at ASC and other resources, but I think it's, I don't know if it's generational or cultural or a combination of both, where, you know, when I was an undergrad, I stayed up. I was just like, I don't even know that question yet, but just in case, you know, and now it seems to be the reverse, they don't want to do that.
That's right.
And it's, so I've had to say,
Well, then I wonder too if that's a new student struggle also, that maybe, I don't know who said it before, but said maybe they're just not aware that that issue is that big of a deal, or they don't know how to communicate to someone, or, you know, I don't know.
and I think I still believe, part of me believes that there is a part of that that is very much generational, that they have been raised and they've grown up in an environment that's more insular, in the sense that, you know, they're more social media driven, they can, you know, sit by themselves and text people and all those sorts of things, where we might have been more social in our context when we interacted, so they kind of approach education in a very similar way, that, you know, I can do it because I've done everything else on my own, I can search it out on my own, but sometimes this isn't the environment that you need help.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they see it as kind of diminished capacity to say something about it, but, you know, whenever I mention, if you need help, how do you comment? What can I do? They're just like, "Okay."
Yeah.
You know, then it waits till I have 47 in your class. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
we told you about this, so.
I think one thing we can do is when we have a project that maybe lasts, let's say, 4 weeks in scope, we can chunk it so that there's more feedback points. That'd be one suggestion. I know when I first got here, you know, Chef Michelle and even Kevin, we all talk together. We do quizzes every day, which might seem kind of exhausted, but quiz to a student is feedback. So like, wow, I got a 7 today. Tomorrow I'll get an 8 out of 10. Next time maybe I'll get a 9. Oh my goodness. Chef Michelle and Chef Schumer are commenting that I'm getting 4 out of 10s. I'm not meeting standard. Like, just more, you know, repetition of feedback built into that program, so that you as an instructor have to continuously give feedback. And also the student has to kind of see it and hear it. So there's really no excuse to say I'm not sure how I'm doing, because I can see that every day I'm being measured in some way. That would be the one thing. The other thing is how a student approaches tutoring, or this whole concept of asking for help. One of the big things that I've been trying to do in orientation is to share with the student that we all need help at one point. I always share my own weakness. I've been trying to learn how to play drums for like 3 years. I'm still not good at it, and I'm still not satisfied. The fact of the matter is that I still go to lessons so that I get better. So like, you can take a B student to an A or a C student to a B. Asking for help isn't what you do when you're desperate. Asking for help and asking for guidance is what you do every day, or you should. So kind of like creating this culture of like, it's okay to get assistance and get help. That's how you get better in everything in your life. I think that's a cultural spin, because everybody thinks that they have to go to tutoring when they're bad or when they're not good enough. There's all that self-deprecation stuff that's been environmental for them, right? So if I don't ask for help, it's not me identifying that I need help. So therefore, I'm not going to ask for help. I mean, you get half of our students could be like, kick them to you and say, no, you need help. Like, they should self-identify. I mean, you know when you don't understand. So I think we just need to show our students that there's no shame in asking for help, because we all need help. We all have coaches in our life.
This is the weirdest little voodoo trick, at least maybe it feels like voodoo in my mind, but I found that the frame, just asking the question, does everybody understand? That gives them the out, yeah, we understand.
No,
Which is their way of saying, don't pay attention. Flip it around and say, what doesn't make sense about this? And, you know, certainly in a big class, you can maybe just muffle responsibility. If you approach that student by student, what doesn't make sense about this? It kind of is like, hey, I'm right here. What's not making sense? It's not a judgmental, oh, you're bad, you don't get it.
Right.
What's not making sense?
Right.
Nice segue into our next topic then.
All right, and thank you for sharing all of that. In the interest of time, we're going to give an overview of this landing course initiative and this journey that we're inviting you to participate in on the second side of the agenda. you'll see Art's wonderful artistry of the journey here. It starts as a faculty member. So basically, this journey is to help students be successful in the landing courses. And we can see it as two different threads. One being this community of practice, where now we have everybody talking, getting to know each other. And this will continue on a Yammer group. Is everybody familiar with Yammer? Oh, I should ask. Okay, who is not familiar with Yammer?
I've seen the box when I logged into my email, but I've never been in it.
Yeah, so when you log into your email in Office 365, you have all these different apps, one of which is your email. Also there is Yammer, which is the Laureate-wide social media platform. So
There it is.
ignore any negative connotations of social media. This is a professional platform, and Art's gonna click on it.
We created a Yammer group just for the landing courses, which you will get an invitation to. And Diana, who is a member of Gen Ed, is a landing course instructor. She's already posted in here. But this Yammer group is private, so even though Yammer is a Laureate-wide thing, you can create groups, and this group is specifically private. So it's just going to be us, the other people who come to other workshops online or here on campus, and it'll be a place for us to ask questions. And like, I can't get students to talk in my class, or I'm struggling with how I get students to develop together from different programs or whatever. Or maybe you have an insight, like we'll just share this little tip. But it's a place we can go and post questions or answers or suggestions or links to resources and stuff.
And to continue this conversation throughout the quarter. So just go into Yammer and take a look around. Art will add you to the group, or if you want to search for Landing Courses Initiative Summer 2016, then that should pop up as well.
So you're saying all the people who've been invited to this actual discussion for landing course are the only ones who can see the content?
Yes.
That's it?
So it's a private group.
Okay. I asked that because, I'm sorry, it could just be me, but I just started teaching my first online course. I just started teaching online.
Mhm.
And I was primarily in hospitality, and now I'm teaching hospitality and business. And what's different is I'm having more students that are more culturally diverse. Like I might have a class of 25 people, and 11 are from Kazakhstan. I actually had that happen last term. And the way that they approach learning is very different in the sense that how they interact or how they speak in class, or how if I have 11 Chinese students and they never say anything, whereas my French students might yell, or, you know, and there might be some of you in the room who are more familiar with these kind of cultural adjustments, and I'm not, so it would be helpful to have an area that says, hey, you know, this is kind of what you might expect with this, you know, because it's almost like I'm being thrown into each one of these experiences, like, oh, I didn't see that coming, okay. Or how come no one's saying anything? You know, when I go to the meetings, like, oh, you have the French students there, and saying, oh, okay. So for me, it's new. I mean, you guys might have had this experience before. And I've had maybe 1 or 2, but never 10 or 12.
Yeah, well, at the same time, you've all been kind of thrown into this initiative. I mean, no one volunteered to teach a language. So that's why we wanted to provide support and realize that we're all in this community together. So that's why one of the reasons why we had this Yammer group.
And like you mentioned, none of you agreed to teach your course knowing that this is a landing course and this is what you would be asked to do. But it's an initiative that came through the academic leadership. Dina, correct me if I'm wrong. Where there was a need and a solution was put into place in order to support that. So in addition to this Yammer community that will last throughout the term, we will also have the series of 3 in-person or online meetings with the group. So kickoff meeting, which is today, the midterm meeting around week 5, and then the end of quarter. Another tool that we have for you, we'd like to direct you to, is KC Alert, which used to be known as Academic Alert, where if you have a struggling student, it's the way to reach out and get assistance in helping them, and also to get them some help. So if you log into the portal, there's a link to KC Alert right there. It'll take you to SharePoint. You might need to log in with your email credentials, And then you'll get that form pulled, scroll down to their name, and then you'll be asked a series of questions to more carefully pinpoint what it is that the need is. After you submit, depending on the issue that you've identified, the appropriate people on campus will be notified.
And I forget, does that have a attendance as part of, like, you're not attending?
Yeah, the top
I
one.
think so.
Okay. It's kind of like-
There we go. Yep, so you can pop in and see what the choices are, and then if it's something that doesn't fall into the category, there's a fill-in also, so that it can get individual attention.
Does a student, who sees this, just faculty?
Faculty and staff such as the Academic Success Center,
Okay.
academic advising, Jeanette, our Director of Campus Safety, the deans sometimes, depending on
Depending on
the concern.
okay.
Yep, great question. Okay. The next tool is Teaching Toolbox. And I think many of you have already seen this. This is a website created by and for faculty and staff at Kendall. So if you scroll down, you'll see the landing courses. Click on that and see that article that Ryan had written about. And we linked this in the email that we sent you about landing courses, the statistics, and then recommendations for best practices. You'll also see a ton of hyperlinks that will take you to different spots, different articles and resources within the teaching toolbox. One useful area is under instructional strategies, and that's where you'll see a list of very practical how-to articles. It's hard to see right now, but that you can apply in class. Some strategies, resources, and then some faculty spotlights where other faculty have shared their approach. So feel free to dive in. It's teachingtoolbox.us. You don't need to log in or anything. It's just wide open on the web, but it's specific to Kendall College. So there's Nicole's spotlight, and then we also have one on.
Oh, it's a spotlight.
So this is spotlight on Nicole. We have right.
Nice.
Okay, so Nicole's was where she shared some examples of Blackboard announcements that include some best practices for engaging students with the content for online classes. And then Sapna's, she discusses, she actually addresses many of the things from the landing course page about establishing expectations and other aspects of teaching online courses. So we'll be adding more as we go, and if you're interested in contributing, please let me know. Let us know, and then we can work with you to create your own piece. Teaching toolbox, and can you talk about what these are?
Yes. In the spring, many of you had opportunities and chose to participate in peer observations. And one of the things that we learned from that was that you wanted opportunities to observe your colleagues from other departments. So that initiative is going to be done against college-wide, but we are going to actually include that as part of this initiative also. So we're going to strongly encourage, if not actually require, that you actually observe one of your colleagues. Maybe somebody here from a different department, or the CTL can work with you and find a match for you to go in and observe. Because we want you to try some of these strategies. Or if you're doing something that you think works really well, then the colleague can come in and observe you actually doing that, give you some feedback about some things, and then when we come back for our week 5 midterm meeting, we can share some of your findings and some of your insights that you gain. And you can also post some of those to the Ambergroup so that we can all see some of the things that you're observing, or maybe you do something in the class and that raises a question, so you want to post a question on here and see if somebody else has some insights into that.
Or if you observe somebody and you notice them doing something really cool and you'd like some support in implementing that in your own class, then reach out to the group and see who has suggestions.
Yeah, that's one of.
Has the paperwork associated with that been modified? It looked a lot punitive on the front end.
Yes, it's less punitive now.
What's this instructor doing wrong? How could they improve their class? What kind of, and
Are you referring to
it
the
really
version from
read,
last
I mean, it really read
Here
like
are
a task and a chore.
these 3 file documents are going to be
Documented,
available in the Yammer. There's a link in Yammer that allows you to download files. And these 3 files are on there. One of them is how to use Yammer. Okay? And the other one are the guidelines for the peer observation. And we modified what was used in the spring.
So in the spring, the version you're referring to, each school had a different, slightly different version, I believe, but
Yeah.
now we're looking toward having a unified one that would be used college-wide.
And it was pretty comprehensive too. It's kind of look at everything in the class and so forth. So we kind of focused it just on specific things related to the landing courses, specifically strategies that are covered in the teaching toolbox. So like going in and observing how does your peer nurture community in their classroom. So before you actually come in to observe, you would do a pre-observation sheet, which says, here are the things that I'm doing right now that I want you to come in and observe you doing. Maybe I'm trying a new strategy and I want you to come in and tell me how I'm doing with that, where you see areas I can improve. Or, I'm really struggling with this. Can you come in and observe and give me some insight, things that you're seeing that maybe I'm not seeing? So you'll do a pre-observation sheet first, share this with your colleague before they come in, and then afterwards have a conversation then about what you observed. So this guidelines, this form, and the how to use Yammer are 3 separate files that you can access through Yammer. And you can get access to Yammer by going searching for yourself or waiting for an email that the CTL sends you with the invitation link.
So as we were putting together the guideline for the peer observation this time and pulling from the previous version, punitive was definitely not a tone that I saw come out of it. So it is more of let's share ideas, and then the person to be observed is asking the observer, here's what I want you to watch me do, here's what I'd like you to, give me feedback on. Jennifer?
Will there be consideration if you decide to do this as a requirement? Will there be consideration about the number of these that you do, whether you're full-time or active?
Yeah, with that one is a great, doing it once is great. Like I said, I think that's going to be the whole college opportunity to do this again. So we've talked to the deans about whether you would also need to do that, and it was just one pure observation. And since you're part of this initiative, then hope that you would focus on the landing course one.
So if your dean is asking you to do a peer observation, then this would be, this would take care of it. So that's it for us.
Yeah, anyone have any questions about the initiative? I hope that you're excited about being a part of it. We're excited about it because I think we can grow all as professional educators from this. And then hopefully, obviously, we can help all of our students in these landing courses be successful.
So when you go on Yammer, you'll see not just the people in this room, but the faculty who have attended yesterday's on-campus session, as well as the faculty in the online. So
There's
a
about
larger group.
27 of us in total, I think, right?
Yeah.
27, 28?
Yeah.
Something around there.
Okay.
And plus, some faculty who are taking classes not technically considered landing courses, but are relevant and students can benefit.
And for those of you that don't know, CTL is in 724. I actually talked to some people who didn't know where we were located now, but we're in 724. So please stop by if you want any support using any of the strategies in your class. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you, guys.